Coming up today, the government has vowed to cover all the medical costs of the 2 soldiers who were seriously injured in last month's landmine attacks. Visiting the men in hospital, President Park Geun-hye praises them for their bravery. 10 people have been confirmed dead and 8 more missing after a fishing boat capsized off Korea's southern coast. Plus, the head of the International Monetary Fund says the US Federal Reserve must be certain the job market and inflation are strong enough before it starts raising rates. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Monday, September 7th here in Seoul. Thank you for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. Our top story this morning, President Park Geun-hye says the country will fully take care of the 2 soldiers seriously injured in last month's landmine explosions at the DMZ. Visiting their hospital wards on Sunday, she said it's up to the government to look after people who defend the country. Under the current rules, the country is only obligated to cover a soldier's medical expenses for 30 days after the start of their treatment. Now, 1 soldier had both legs amputated and another lost his right foot after the mine blasts at the demilitarized zone that are blamed on North Korea. Despite their injuries, both have expressed a desire to continue serving in the army. Officials from the 2 Koreas are set to hold working-level talks to iron out the details of a planned set of reunions for war-separated families. Seoul's Unification Ministry says the meeting will begin at 10 a.m. on Monday, roughly 4 hours from now, on the South Korean side of the border village of Panmunjom. The date, location and scale of the events are up for discussion. While nothing has been set, the gatherings are expected to take place in early or mid-October following Chuseok, the Korean harvest holiday, and will take place at North Korea's Mount Gumgang resort. The reunions will most likely be held in 2 rounds for 100 families from each side, the maximum number of people the resort can accommodate. South Korea is set to engage in a flurry of international diplomacy following last week's summit with China. This week, South Korean officials will hold talks with their counterparts in China and the United States ahead of a possible rocket launch by North Korea next month. Hwang Sang-hee reports.
South Korea will engage in back-to-back nuclear diplomacy this week as part of ongoing efforts to curb North Korea's nuclear ambitions. On Monday, South Korean officials in charge of North Korea affairs will meet with Chinese Deputy Nuclear Negotiator Xiao Chen in Seoul. It will be the first such meeting since last week's summit talks in Beijing. President Park Geun-hye and Chinese President Xi Jinping had called for a swift resumption of meaningful 6-party nuclear talks. The multilateral dialogue involving the 2 Koreas, the United States, China, Japan and Russia has been stalled for nearly 7 years. Separately, South Korea's chief nuclear envoy Hwang Jung-guk is scheduled to travel to Washington in the latter half of the week for talks with his U.S. counterpart Sang Kim. He also plans to stop in New York to meet with representatives of the 15 UN Security Council member states. The flurry of nuclear diplomacy comes ahead of a possible rocket launch by Pyongyang next month. There is growing speculation that North Korea will fire a long-range missile sometime around October 10th to mark the 70th anniversary of the founding of its ruling Workers' Party. The pressure on Pyongyang is expected to intensify when the Chinese leader meets with U.S. President Barack Obama at the end of this month. But while Seoul and Washington have called for China to play a more constructive role in bringing about change in North Korea, it remains to be seen how far Beijing is willing to go against its longtime ally. Hwang Sang-hee, Arirang News.
A leading newspaper in the United States has openly criticized Chinese President Xi Jinping for last week's Victory Day event, which was held to mark the 70th anniversary of Japan's World War II defeat. The The Washington Post said that, although Xi claimed the message of the parade was peaceful, it was, in fact, intended to intimidate Beijing's neighbours, as well as the United States, and to show off China's military might. The newspaper also said that China's latest announcement to reduce the size of its armed forces was not intended to promote peace, as claimed by President Xi, but to further modernize the military and allow for more resources to bolster the Navy and Air Force. Now, turning our focus to the fishing boat that capsized on Saturday off Korea's southern coast. The Navy and the Jeju Coast Guard continued their search operation throughout the night with 9 patrol ships, but failed to find any of the 8 people still missing. Among the 21 people confirmed to have been on board, 10 dead bodies were found, while 3 were rescued after spending over 10 hours sat on the overturned hull. President Park Geun-hye has ordered the Ministry of Public Safety and Security to do everything possible to find the missing people and to provide regular updates on the situation. Members of the Navy's Ship Salvage Unit are set to conduct an underwater operation from the break of dawn, so around about now. The fishing boat lost contact at around 7:40 p.m. on Saturday. That's about half an hour after it left Chuja Island north of Jeju, and was found capsized at around 6:25 a.m. on Sunday. It's believed high waves caused the boat to flip over. In economic news, foreign investment banks and financial institutions are offering a bleak outlook for Korea in the third quarter. The negative forecasts are attributed to a slowdown in the country's exports, which have been on a continued streak of negative growth this year. Shin Se-min has more.
Korea's slowing exports are threatening its economic recovery, according to bleak third-quarter forecasts. Figures from the Korea Development Institute show that while Asia's fourth-largest economy posted a moderate increase in domestic consumption and investment in July from the month before, industrial production shrank over 3% from the previous year due to weak exports. Korea's outbound shipments fell nearly 15% in August from the year before, continuing an 8-month streak of negative growth, the fastest pace of decline in 6 years. The development is likely to hinder economic growth for the heavily export-dependent economy. The slowdown is attributed to weaker demand from China and other major emerging markets. Foreign investment banks have already lowered their third-quarter growth forecast for China to an average of 6.9%, the lowest since 2009. As China is a primary destination for the largest chunk of Korea's exports, the slowdown has also tugged on Korea's economic growth outlook. Already, the Australia and New Zealand banking group has predicted that the Korean economy will expand less than 2% in the third and fourth quarters if the downward trend continues this month. Moody's Credit Rating Institute is predicting 2.1% growth in the third quarter, while research firm HIS Economics forecasts a 2% expansion. Experts say that the downward trend will continue for some time, given the possible risks posed by external factors, such as a possible rate hike by the U.S. Federal Reserve and the instability in global financial markets. Shin Se-min, Arirang News.
Now, the head of the International Monetary Fund is urging the U.S. Federal Reserve to take its time deciding whether to raise interest rates, and says the Fed should move only when it's sure the decision is unlikely to be reversed later. Speaking at the G20 ministers' meeting in Turkey over the weekend, Christine Lagarde said the IMF thinks it's better to make sure the data are absolutely confirmed and that there's no uncertainty, neither in terms of price stability nor on the job market, before it actually makes the move. Her comments come as many emerging economies are concerned a rate hike would trigger large outflows of capital from emerging economies into dollar-denominated assets. Also, on the sidelines of the G20 meeting, Korea's central bank chief, Lee Ju-yeol, met with his counterparts from China and Japan. The officials discussed the recent market rout in China and the effect of a possible U.S. rate hike on the global economy. And with the possibility of a US rate hike looming over the global financial market, China is expected to devalue its currency once again. A report by the Korea Institute of Finance shows as the US dollar gains strength on the back of a potential rate hike this year, it becomes more and more likely that China will act to substantially lower the value of the yuan. The report added, although China's central bank had said it would wait to see whether its lowered currency will support the economy, analysts in Korea expect it to take action sooner rather than later. The Institute also pointed out that it is crucial to start laying out scenarios for various sectors, as it is extremely difficult to predict what economic impact the move will have on the local economy. Pope Francis is calling on Europe's Catholics to shelter refugees fleeing death from war and hunger. Addressing a crowd of thousands of people at St. Peter's Square, the Pope called on every European parish and religious community to take in one migrant family. His comments come after around 10,000 refugees arrived in Germany over the weekend, with many, many more expected to follow them. On the same day, Austrian Chancellor Werner Faymann said it was time to stop the relaxation of border controls that allowed the unimpeded inflow of thousands of refugees from Hungary to Austria and Germany. He said Austria has helped thousands of people in an acute situation, but it was time to step away from emergency measures and restart following the law. Now, in science and technology-related news, graphene is a so-called miracle material that could revolutionize nanotechnology. For the past few years or so, Korean scientists have been trying to develop a number of graphene-related technologies to get a head start in what could be a real burgeoning industry. Won Ji-yeon reports.
Graphene is a single layer of carbon atoms that are bonded together in a honeycomb pattern of hexagons. Known as a miracle material, it's 1,000,000 times thinner than paper and yet stronger than diamond. And because of its flexibility and ability to conduct electricity, graphene has the potential to create bendable electronics. However, despite its outstanding traits, graphene's delicate layer can easily get contaminated during transfer. As a solution, researchers from the Korea Institute of Machinery and Materials have developed a new technology to minimize such damage.
We have adjusted the load on the roller machine to prevent graphene from breaking apart during transfer. This way, we can continuously pattern and transfer large sheets of highly conductive graphene.
This roll-to-roll machine can directly transfer graphene using a lamination process. It can mass-produce graphene sheets that are 500 centimeters wide at the speed of 2 meters per minute. Also, it doesn't leave any residues, unlike other transfer methods. Scientists say the technology could become a new turning point in commercializing graphene.
Now that we have the ability to mass-produce transparent sheets of graphene conductors at competitive prices, we can use the technology to create flexible LED and touch panels.
The research is part of the government's efforts to support graphene technology, with hopes to make Korea one of the world's first nations to commercialize this so-called miracle material. Korean firms have already secured more than 90% of graphene-related patents in the world. Won Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, every year, nearly a quarter of all fruit and vegetable crops are lost to food spoilage during the distribution process. But now, researchers in Korea have found a way to stop the rot using sound. For more on this groundbreaking discovery, Park Se-young reports.
Tomatoes begin to spoil about 10 days after harvest, which decreases their value and causes tomato farmers losses of up to 20% of their crop during the handling process. But now, a research team from Korea has developed a way to delay the ripening of harvested tomatoes by exposing them to sound. Researchers expose green tomatoes to varying sound frequencies for 6 hours a day for 12 days. The result was a 35% decline in the production of ethylene, a ripening hormone, and a 33% drop in respiration volume. The ripening of fruit is directly related to ethylene production and increased respiration rate. The treated tomatoes average a delay in ripening of 3 to 4 days compared to those left untreated. Of the sound frequencies tested, 1 kHz produced the best result, yielding a 40% delay in ripening. The sound wave treatment has no side effects and is easy to execute. Applying this technology to other fruits and vegetables is expected to cut annual losses by over $2.5 billion.
This low-cost treatment simply requires speakers and a sound wave program. Anyone can use it, even those unfamiliar with sound waves.
The Rural Development Administration has applied for a patent for the treatment, with plans to distribute the technology to both farms and retailers. The study was also published in the online version of the international journal Post-Harvest Biology and Technology. Park Geun-hye, Arirang News.
Well, those are the stories we have for you on this Monday morning here in Seoul. For more of the latest, don't forget to check out the website arirang.com/news. We do hope your week gets off to a wonderful start. Goodbye.